If you stumble about believability, what are you living for? Love is hard to believe, ask any lover. Life is hard to believe, ask any scientist. God is hard to believe, ask any believer. What is your problem with hard to believe? Jan Martel, Life of Pi. This is AMI Audiobook Review. I'm your host, Jacob Shymansky. Vikas Adam is an Audiobook Award winner with over 500 audiobook titles to his name. One of those audiobooks is Jan Martel his audiobooks is Life of Pi by Jan Martel, a book that I personally hold very close to my heart, and that was the source of today's quote of the day. Vikas has been nominated for Audi's 16 times, piled up 25 Earphone Awards from Audiophile magazine, and he was among the inaugural inductees into the Audible Narrator Hall of Fame. But the most impressive thing is that he's made time to be on this humble little audiobook show. Vikas, thank you so much for making time. How's it going, man?
It is a joy. Thank you so much for having me, and especially to start my Friday this way.
It is a gray, gloomy day in Toronto here, and I'm jealous that you're down there in LA.
Santa Monica, baby.
And as a fellow Canadian,
yes,
it's nice. It's nice knowing that we got one of the best Canadian narrators on the show here. I want to talk about 500 audiobook titles, and it's higher than that. I think we stopped counting at a certain point. Do you ever look back at that number and just marvel at it? That's a crazy amount of time.
Very much so. Very much so. It's humbling. It's always a reminder of where I came from and where I started and how much further there is to go.
And you've had roles on screen, you've had roles in voice acting, but you keep coming back to audiobook narration. Like, why do you keep coming back to the audiobook game?
I think it's that oldest form of storytelling. I mean, all forms of acting, all forms of theater and performance, it harkens back to a form of storytelling. But this is, for me, I mean, it's like I was that introvert kid who, was always, he had a book in his hand, who was in the corner. My safe space, my sanctuary was the library. Every time we moved, and we were moving around a lot when I was a kid, the first place I would go to in my new elementary school would be the library to see if they needed a librarian's assistant, because that was my safe space. My mother, when I was in high school, when it came time to get a job, she was like, "You can't get a job at the bookstore. You'll get fired because you'll be reading instead of shelving books." Books have always been a constant in my life. So it kind of makes sense in retrospect that I fell into this.
We've interviewed quite a few narrators on the show, and I always ask them about their process, how they do things. If there's one thing that I've learned is that there's a lot of different ways to go about this. Mm-hmm. And so I think our listeners and myself are really interested in hearing about how you go about recording an audiobook. And I want to do this from A to Z, if you're down for it.
Yeah. Let's do it.
How does a book end up getting into your hands for narration? How does that process look like?
It varies. There's always a producer who will reach out to me, and it'll be either a direct offer or there will be an audition. And so if it's a direct offer, I will take a look at the book. I will see if this is a book that I feel would be a good fit for me. Look through it, see if I connect with something within the book. And then we go from there. And if I audition, if there's something, then the author or the producer will decide. It varies, depends on the contract for the book. But most of the time now, authors will make the final call on who the narrator is based on the audition.
How do you know if a book is a good fit for you? What do you look for?
I'm looking at writing. I'm looking at where I am. where the book will fall. So if in my particular life, so for example, if not that it ever happens, but if there is a book that is going to be a lot more challenging, whether it's a piece of literary fiction, whether it is just a subject matter that is going to challenge me or will require more research, or if the book is if it's a lot more dense and just requires a lot more energy, I look and see where it's going to fall in the calendar and what it's going to be like, because that's going to take time and effort.
This is so interesting because on this show, we've talked about how as readers, we don't want to line up 5 very dense, complicated books in a row. You kind of like to alternate between a tough read and an easy, cozy read.
Absolutely.
It sounds like you do the same thing.
I try to do that as much as I can, because that also is going to allow each book to remain in its own particular, get the attention it deserves, versus having 2 books of the same genre or theme even, and then having one bleed over into the next. For me, at least, there are some people who can completely compartmentalize. I like to be extra judicious.
That's what it really sounds like. Are you judicious about the general quality of the book? Like, let's say a book falls, like it hits a lot of bullet points as to what you're looking for at any given point in time, but it's like mid. Like, it's not excellent. Like, you're not going to say that out loud, obviously. And we're not naming any books, but like, does the quality of the book come into your consideration for whether you're going to narrate it or not?
To a degree. I mean, once again, it's not my place to judge the writing. It's not my place. It's not my place to make that call. It is someone's baby. It's being asked to be put into the audio format. And what my job is to see is if I can connect with it so that I can give the book the love and attention it deserves, so I can bring it to life.
Well, you're right that it's not, as a narrator, it's not your place to judge or review this book. But as a person, you feel some sort of way about the books that you read, right?
Yeah, and if it's something that I don't feel I can connect with, then and if I feel that a bias may find its way in, then I will turn it down, because that's not fair. That's not fair to the author. That's not fair to the publisher. That's not fair to the listener.
Yeah, the narrator, the author might be happy to have a big name narrator like yourself for recording it, but if your heart's not in it, it's probably going to show.
Yeah, and
right?
the good thing though is that it rarely happens. I'm able. I'm as I was as I said, I love books, and I'm in awe and enamored with writers and authors. And so the fact that they can write it out and put it out there, I don't think I'm not very judgmental in that way. I'm always looking for the positive. I'm always looking for how much of this, what can I connect with? What can I connect with? It takes a lot for me to not connect with something.
I think that positivity is to your benefit, though. Ultimately, like you said, you don't have any biases coming in. Yeah. It's like if you were reading the book and you had a scowl on your face, people could probably hear it.
Yeah. Oh, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now you have a book in your hands. You're ready to narrate. The contracts are written up and everything.
Yes.
How do you prepare?
So I do a quick read. I do a quick read on it. There are just things I'm looking for. I'm looking for characters. I'm looking for the writing style. And I also have someone that I work with who does a deeper prep for me. So it's like a second set of eyes for me. So I can make sure that I am seeing everything, that I saw everything correctly. It's also someone that I can discuss it with. And so do that. And they're able to prep my notes. That's very, very important for me. So that I can actually have, as I'm reading through it, I'm like going, okay, I'm taking note of this person, these are the characters who are in here, but this is someone who can actually just write it down for me. So I can have that for myself.
So this person who's writing notes for you, like,
Yeah.
what kind of notes are they putting down?
Oh, they're basically doing the notes that I would normally be doing, so that I was always doing when I first started off. But it's a way to save time, so that I can continue. So I can actually read the book, but not be stopping to write things down. I can just read the book, catalog it in my head, and then my prepper is actually like writing the notes out for me. So I'm looking for characters. I'm looking for a basic plot, a very light plot of the summary of the chapter, and but mainly the characters, so I can remind myself who's speaking in this chapter.
Why does it help for you to know the summary of a chapter?
So I'm prepping because I'm doing about a book a week.
Wow.
Maybe.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm prepping. So I'm reading a book a few weeks beforehand. I'm getting a word list in if there are any words that I don't know how to pronounce. So while I'm prepping that, and then I'm in the booth recording another one, and then the week later, a different book. It's been a few weeks since I have read this new book that I'm supposed to be recording. So it's always good to have a reminder of who the characters are, what the summary is, so that I'm not getting confused with a different book.
You know, I've mentioned this on the show before, but I used to work with professional interpreters. And one thing they would say is that you can't effectively and accurately interpret something unless you fundamentally understand what's being said. Sure, you can understand what every individual word means, but what is being said? What's the message here? And narration, in a way, is interpretation. And it seems like these chapter summaries is helping you,
oh my goodness,
understand the meaning behind the chapter.
Well, it reminds me about character. It reminds me about characters. It reminds me of character interpretations. It reminds interactions, relationships between the two. I need that, and because if it's the name of the game. I mean, even when I first started, and I was doing everything on my own, which I really do feel a narrator should be doing. You have to read the book. You have to prep it on your own. I was writing chapter summaries. I was writing detailed character notes, and it took upwards of, I would have to say I had to get into the 200s. And it got to the point where the work was coming in so frequently, and I was at a place of comfort in my process, so that I was able to comfortably say, okay, the work, the narration is not going to be affected if I do a quick read and if I have someone else give me the notes that I'm asking for. And so that was an adjustment for me, because I'm a total control freak. And I'm like, I like to know exactly what's going on. But yeah, did that answer your question?
Yes. I mean, hearing all of this, it really details how narration is a craft. I think we like to think that when you narrators get into a booth, it's a single 15-hour session. You just crank out everything in one take. It couldn't be further from the truth. I'm curious, what's your best estimate as to how much work goes into every hour of recorded audiobook? We've had a narrator tell us there was about, for every hour of recorded material was about 4 hours of work. Had other people say it was about 2 to 1. What's your best guess?
I mean, the average is 2 to 1. Once again, it depends on a book.
Right.
There is, I think, if there's a book that just there's like this sympathetic, it's like it's this symbiosis. It's just magic. It's beautiful, and for some weird reason, there's a connection with the words and with where you are. I mean, I've been able to crank out in a session. I mean, I've been able to do about one finished hour to 90 minutes.
Wow.
So it's taken me, because it's just flowing so beautifully, and so it's taken me 90 minutes to do one finished hour. However, sometimes, and there's a wonderful book that I just finished that I really truly enjoyed, and it was it's like a mystery, but it takes place in ancient Rome. It's called Juvenalia. It's part of the Valerius Mysteries series, and it's wonderful. These books. It takes place in ancient Rome, but the writing is very contemporary in tone. However,
cool.
It's also a beautiful way to learn about ancient Rome, because there's so much history, but there's so many words. And so when we were recording this, we were having to stop almost every other line at certain points to double check the pronunciations. So that, for this particular book, it took me, it was taking me like probably 4 hours, 4 hours to get one finished hour, which for me is really slow. But I knew that was going to happen. And so I was mentally and emotionally prepared for it. So I wasn't being hard on myself or anything like that. It's not any kind of ego trip where you're like going, oh, I got this many hours done based on my, how good I am. It's not about that. It's about, and you can't do that to yourself. Each project is completely different.
Right, like a cozy small town romance is not the same as a dense book of fantasy with made up names.
Absolutely.
And made up character names and stuff like that.
And voices and tone and the high fantasy may require much broader voices, and that's going to take energy and time. And switching between the 2 or 3 voices in one scene at certain points, it may take a sec to adjust. And versus with the cozy mystery, you don't have to go that broad with the voices.
I've heard some narrators, when they have a lot of character voices to do, they actually have a spreadsheet where they have a description of the voice and a voice recording of every single voice, meaning like the tone and accent. Have you ever done that type of thing?
When I first started, yes. I didn't do a I didn't do a spreadsheet. I didn't do a spreadsheet per se, but I had like handwritten notes for everything, because that was more so. I stopped because I was able. Well, number one, I was able to, like, as you continue doing it, you find your process, and it's like anything. It's like a musician. The more they play an instrument, the easier it is for them to pick up a new piece, probably, and adapt it. Same with a dancer. Same with I do this with camera actors who are doing a TV show. I'm always impressed by camera actors getting on set, getting their script, and soap actors in particular. They get their scripts like the day before, and they've got pages of dialogue to learn. And at first, it's daunting and it's scary, but the more they do it, and there's a comfort that's built in being on set, being with the same character, being with the people around you. And so the more they do it, they become like a machine, and they're able to adapt, and they're able to, for some weird reason, learn the lines quicker. The writers also write for them. So As with that, the more you do it and the more you start reading, you know what you're looking for. I know what I need from this particular book in order for me to effectively interpret it sonically.
How do you structure your sessions when you're actually sitting down in the booth?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like how long are you sitting in there? Do you take breaks?
I'm
curious.
I do take breaks, but I try not to. I try and go as long as I can. And usually the way it works is it takes me forever to get going, especially on the first day of a book. I get scared.
Even after the 500th book?
After. And I used to berate myself about it. And I realized, no, that's human and it's wonderful and it's good because it means that I want to do my best. And so it was a matter of interpreting the fear not as something bad, but as something human. And so there's always that fear sometimes of going into the booth for the first time with a new book because I'm like, oh, am I going to do it justice? Ooh, can I have to, it's a new project. So it's going to take a sec to get acclimated to the world. And that it's like jumping into the pool, I think. No matter how many times you do it, the first time you jump into that pool, there's always going to be that splash of that temperature change for people who do whether they're swimming or whether they do cold plunges. No matter how many times they do cold plunges, and don't get me started, I don't understand people who do cold plunges. I'm never going to do it. But
you're Canadian, come on.
Yeah, stepping out is a cold plunge. And there's a reason I live in LA. But even those who do cold plunges, no matter how many times they do it, there's still that shock to the system. And I think that's what doing a new book is like for me.
You know, creatives and artists often talk about the flow state, where when you're being productive, you get to this point where you just don't want to stop.
Yeah.
That sounds like exactly what happens with you after you get going with the book. You've figured out your flow, and now you just want to keep going because you don't want to interrupt it, because you know it takes a while to ramp up to it. And that's what that first chapter is, right? It's the ramp up.
Yeah. And what I will often do is before I even start, I will read out a few of the pages aloud before I even start recording, just to get kind of like a part of a warm up, to get into the flow of things. And it's not to get my my tongue and my brain in connection with each other. And they're like, okay, are you all working together as a good machine here? It's like, okay, you're passing the ball to each other here, from the page to the brain to the mouth. Is it all working? Is it flowing? Especially with this particular language that we have.
This is such a little detail in the process. Do you use punch recording, or do you have somebody edit different takes together?
All I will do. It depends on what is asked for by the producer. Certain ones they will want a free roll, which is just running, and then someone else is taking notes as to where that all happens. That's my favorite, because one of my favorites actually. I like them both actually for different reasons, but I really like that because then I'm not worried about anything. Oftentimes I will have an engineer because for punch rolls, because I really don't want my that state interrupted.
Just for the people who don't know, can you explain what free roll and punch roll is?
Yes. A free roll is when you push record and it is just continuing to record, mistakes and all, everything is there. And there are numerous ways of being able to designate where the mistake is for the editor. You can either do a clap or a snap, or there'll be a clicker, or a director will keep a time code based on where you are. That's one way. Punch and roll, which is the most common, is you make a mistake, you stop, you go back to where you made a mistake, and then you punch back in over there. And so for that, it can just be a lot more, for the editor, it can just be a lot more economical time-wise when it comes to the editing process.
It's like editing on the fly, basically.
Yes, and then when it goes to post after that, they're still doing some additional edits and making sure that everything is clean and running soundly and everything like that. But for that, I usually have an engineer punching me in because I don't want to stop.
It sounds annoying to have to stop that often.
It can be, but once again, sometimes the more you do it, and once again, based on the connection to the text and how, whether there's that wonderful connection that the two of you may have, it can flow, and I can end up going for a while.
A lot of musicians, they like to work with the same engineers because they get into that flow state, like collaboratively. Is that what happens with you? Do you often use the same engineers?
I have a few engineers that I do like to work with. Same with directors, but at the same time, I will request, you know what? Let's go with someone different here. Let's challenge me. I don't want to get too comfortable.
Okay, now that we're really getting into the details, I'm being indulgent here. What do you drink? Like when you're recording, you have a cup of tea or just water?
What do I not have?
Some people have some pretty. What do you not have?
What do I not have?
Some people have some pretty wacky takes.
What do I not have in there? Always, definitely water, and there's always going to be tea. The tea can vary from throat coat to some sort of herbal tea.
Throat coat?
Throat coat. Oh, you haven't heard of throat coat?
No, what's throat coat?
Throat coat is a type of tea. It's a slippery elm. It's a slippery elm tea, and it feels like butter going down your throat, and it's got an interesting. I think it's a pleasant taste, but sometimes once again it varies. It's like, but I think it's very important to have a room temperature or a warm hot liquid for me. So I will have that in there, depending on the day, depending on where I'm at. I actually may have black coffee in there.
Oh, usually that's a no for voice actors. It dries you out.
Yeah.
You're a rebel.
But that's why. But once again, it's like every actor, your instrument is different. It's going to be different on a certain day. You've got to know where you're at, and there are certain days where I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to have any black coffee right now because I know it will affect the sound of my voice. It will affect my ability. But there are certain days where I'm like, no, I'm actually pretty confident right now, and I could use the black coffee, and the sound is good.
Wow, it's like Celine Dion.
Yes.
She would take vows of silence. That's the level that she would take care of her voice. Narrators is the same thing, right? You got to be in tune and tune your instrument as you go. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good sound that's going to come out of it. Vikas, that's all the time we have for today's episode. I want to thank you so much for making time. We'd love to have you on again if you have
Absolutely.
some time. We'll be in touch. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much, man. Have a good one.
You too.
That was Vikas Adams. He's a very prolific audiobook narrator with 500 titles to his name. There's a very good chance you recognized his voice, even if you didn't hear the introduction. That's all the time we have for today's edition of AMI Audiobook Review. AMI Audiobook Review airs weekends at 1 p.m. Eastern on AMI Audio and repeats every 6 hours, but we also make ourselves easy to find. We're on all the big podcasting platforms, and that includes YouTube. You can send us an email with feedback at audiobookreview@ami.ca with any feedback you might have. You can follow us on Instagram at AMI Audiobook Review. I was Jacob Szymanski. Thanks for listening.